What's up, guys? This is Chris from Draftdashboard.com.
Here are my DFS picks for NFL Week 4 First Look.
These picks apply for Draftkings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button
And hit that bell icon
so you don't miss our new videos.
In this video, I'm going to go over my top DraftKings picks for NFL Week 4. And if you stay to the very end after all my picks and after I show you the Draft Dashboard tools, I'll give you my super secret sleeper pick that no one's talking about. Okay, let's take a look at the quarterback position. One of my favorite plays this week is Russell Wilson from the Seattle Seahawks playing the Arizona Cardinals, who have the third worst defense overall, and they give up the third most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. Russell Wilson is averaging 29.7 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 44 fantasy points last week. He had 7 rush attempts. He's rushing the ball around 6 times per game. So that's nice rushing upside. He's projected at 19 fantasy points here in Week 4. He's $6,100 DraftKings salary and $1,700 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 47 points scored in this game, and the Seattle Seahawks are favored by 4.5 points. We just added the Vegas lines to the player row in the position optimizer. So this is going to help you pick out players from high-scoring games, and you can see what games are projected to be blowouts and which ones are projected to be competitive. So that helps a lot when picking your fantasy players. Russell Wilson's got a fantastic matchup, and he's favored in a high-scoring game. So I like Russell Wilson here versus the Arizona Cardinals. If you're looking for a low-salary value play quarterback, take a look at Daniel Jones and Kyle Allen. Daniel Jones scored 39 fantasy points last week, and Kyle Allen scored 25 fantasy points. So these guys overperformed their expectations. They both had 3 to 4 rush attempts, so it's nice to see these young guys using their legs. They're both projected at about 15.5 fantasy points here in Week 4, and they've both got fantastic matchups. Daniel Jones versus a bad Washington Redskins defense, and Kyle Allen versus a bad Houston Texans defense. The Texans are giving up the 5th most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks, and the Washington Redskins are giving up the 4th most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. Vegas thinks both these games are going to be right around 47 points, so plenty of scoring, and they're both projected to be competitive games, within 3 to 5 points. So everything's lining up for these guys to go out there and surprise some people here in Week 4. So I like Daniel Jones and Kyle Allen if you're looking for some low-salary value quarterbacks.
Before I continue with the picks, I'm excited today because we added a new contest for everyone watching. If you want to enter the drawing for $100 PayPal, all you need to do is like this video, hit that subscribe button, and make a quick comment below to be entered into the drawing. We'll reply to a random comment and let you know that you won, and then we'll send you $100 PayPal. So it's that easy, and we pick a new winner every Saturday and announce them in our video. So get your comment in now so I can add another entry for you.
Okay, who do we have at the running back position? I like Austin Ekeler from the LA Chargers playing the Miami Dolphins, who have the worst defense overall, and they give up the absolute most fantasy points to opposing running backs. Austin Ekeler has scored 26.3 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 15 fantasy points last week, which was his fewest so far this season. He's getting right around 7 pass targets a game, and he's rushing the ball about 13 times a game. So he's hitting that 20 touch mark every game. He's on the field for 71% of the snaps, and he touches the ball 40% of that time. Nice usage numbers. He's going to continue to get the bulk of the work here. The goal line carries, pretty good volume and opportunity for Austin Ekeler, especially versus this Miami defense. Vegas has the Chargers favored by 16.5 points. So it could be a lot of Austin Ekeler at any point throughout this game, especially if they're trying to run the clock out. He's projected at 20.6 fantasy points here in Week 4. He's $8,000 DraftKings salary and only 100 more on FanDuel. So I like Austin Ekeler here versus the Miami Dolphins. If you want to get off the Austin Ekeler chalk or save some salary at running back, take a look at Marlin Mack. I've been on this guy since week 1 from the Indianapolis Colts playing the Oakland Raiders, who have the 6th worst defense overall, and they give up the 12th most fantasy points to opposing running backs. Marlin Mack is averaging 17.8 fantasy points per game on the season and 20.3 rush attempts per game. He's getting about 3 pass targets a game, and that number can go up. He's a very capable pass catching back. He's on the field for 68% of the snaps, and he's touched the ball 48% of that time. Projected at 12.1 fantasy points here in week 4. He's 6,100 Draftkings salary and 1,200 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 45 points scored in this game, and the Colts are favored by 7. So pretty close game. This is a home game for Marlin Mack, and I like what I'm seeing so far this season. So I like Marlin Mack here versus the Oakland Raiders. Real quick guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all the tools for NFL, MLB is still going, NBA is right around the corner. This is a great time to get in and try everything for 1 month. The tools are all about saving research time. You can see the last 3 games, the fantasy points per game, the targets they got per game, so you can see how involved they are in the offense, the rushes they got per game. Seeing all this stuff on one screen helps you save time and make better picks. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups. Okay, let's take a look at the wide receiver position. I like Odell Beckham Jr. from the Cleveland Browns playing the Baltimore Ravens, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and they give up the 9th most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. Odell Beckham Jr. has scored 18.9 fantasy points per game on the season, and he's getting an average of 10 pass targets per game. He's on the field for 97% of the snaps, and he's touched the ball 14% of that time. He's projected at 19 fantasy points here in week 4. He's 7,300 Draftkings salary and 600 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 46.5 points scored in this game, and they've got the Cleveland Browns trailing by 7. So the Browns could be playing from behind, and that could mean a lot of pass targets and long bombs to Odell Beckham Jr. He only scored 12 fantasy points last week, so his ownership may come down. I think he goes off again this week, so I like Odell Beckham Jr. here versus the Baltimore Ravens. Okay, moving down in salary to a guy who's had pretty low ownership so far this season. I like Tyrell Williams from the Oakland Raiders playing the Indianapolis Colts, who have the 11th worst defense overall, and although they're pretty good versus the wide receiver position, Tyrell Williams is averaging 17.7 fantasy points per game on the season. He's getting about 6 pass targets per game. He's on the field for 95% of the snaps, and he's touched the ball 10% of that time. He's projected at 13 fantasy points here in week 4. He's 5,700 Draftkings salary and 200 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be about 45 points scored in this game, and they've got the Oakland Raiders trailing by 7. So the same logic applies here. The Raiders should be playing from behind, and Tyrell Williams is their deep man. Couple of long bombs and a touchdown. This guy's showing he can get it done with the absence of Antonio Brown, who might not even be playing football anymore. So Tyrell Williams has been stepping up big time. So I like Tyrell Williams here versus the Indianapolis Colts. Okay, moving on to the tight end position. I like Evan Engram from the New York Giants playing the Washington Redskins, who have the 4th worst defense overall and give up the 8th most fantasy points to opposing tight ends. Evan Engram is averaging 22.9 fantasy points per game on the season. He's getting an average of 10 pass targets per game. He's on the field for 81% of the snaps, and he's touched the ball 18% of that time. He's projected at 14.4 fantasy points here in week 4. He's 5,700 Draftkings salary and 1,100 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 47.5 points scored in this game, and it's going to be a competitive game. Evan Engram could get more work because of the injury to Saquon Barkley. He could return to seeing the 14 pass targets that he saw in Week 1. This is a home game for Evan Engram. It's a nice matchup versus the Washington Redskins, and his salary is still pretty reasonable based on his volume and his production. So I like Evan Engram here versus the Washington Redskins. Another tight end that I like this week is Darren Waller from the Oakland Raiders playing the Indianapolis Colts, who have the 10th worst defense overall, and they give up the 4th most fantasy points to opposing tight ends. Darren Waller is averaging 18.8 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 30 fantasy points last week off of 14 pass targets. He's averaging 10 pass targets per game. He's on the field for 95% of the snaps, and he's touched the ball 17% of the time. He's projected at 11.5 fantasy points here in Week 4. He's $5,200 Draftkings salary and $1,500 more on FanDuel. If you're not playing Tyrell Williams, definitely get yourself some Darren Waller. It's a great matchup for him this week, and I think he goes off again. So I like Darren Waller here versus the Indianapolis Colts.
If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video.
You've unlocked the bonus content. Okay, my super secret sleeper pick for Week 4 is Will Dissly from the Seattle Seahawks playing the Arizona Cardinals, who have the 3rd worst defense overall, and they give up the absolute most fantasy points to opposing tight ends. Will Dissly is averaging 14.1 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 18 and 22 fantasy points in his last 2 games. He's getting about 5 pass targets per game. He's on the field for 56% of the snaps, and he's touched the ball 12% of that time. He's projected at 7.6 fantasy points here in Week 4. He's only $3,600 Draftkings salary and $1,800 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 47 points in this game, and the Seahawks are favored by 4.5. Fantastic matchup versus the Arizona Cardinals. A capable pass catcher, getting red zone targets and getting into the end zone. So I like Will Dissly here versus the Arizona Cardinals.
Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smickety smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite
player for this NFL slate.
I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again and good luck.
Do you want more DFS picks for NFL Week 4? Check out the video linked right in the middle of the screen. Tap that video to continue getting our Week 4 DFS picks. That's right, more Draftkings picks, more FanDuel picks. Just tap the video in the middle of the screen to continue watching.